In this lesson we are going to create a burning match, but do note that we will just build the part where the match actually burns out and deform. I think that the part that would concern the flame is really suitable for thinking particles tutorial, but trust me, this will be more than enough to show you the power of MoGraph once again. Now let me just doodle what I'm trying to achieve with this match. So basically I want a few things here. First one, I want this match to change color so it really becomes dark as it figuratively speaking burns. Also want to have the ability to deform it, because in real world when match burns it kind of deforms and shrinks and looks a little bit odd. Also, I want the ability to control the thickness of this match once it burns, and also the length. And that may seem like a really difficult task, but actually it is not. You can also see that I prepared a simple material that represents this match. This is very simple geometry, and we can get rid of this doodle guy. And we also have this material that will be applied to the match. So this is the material, how the match will look like once it's burned. So let me undo that. And that's it as far as the project demands go. Let's now dig into it and see how can we solve this issue. Now, for this kind of setups, I also built a skeleton. And once again, don't take the word skeleton as something usual. I just find it appropriate in my vocabulary for this kind of things. Now, if I want any deformation on this guy, I can do that with either deformers or either effectors. But if I will load a certain effector to this guy, I will pretty much limit myself as far as the shrinking and controlling the length of this guy is concerned. I think the best idea here is to find a way to use this spline wrap, because it has all those options built into it and has the spline graphs with which we can play with later. So if we are going to use spline wrap, I need a spline, and I can create one from this object, or maybe I will go even to top view. I will press the P key and enable snapping, just 3D snapping, and I will snap just to grid, so it will be good enough. I will select a linear spline. I can go like this. It really doesn't have to be precise. I can turn off snapping, maybe adjust this a little bit. So I'm trying to really match the length of this match, and that's it. I will hide this guy for a moment because I want to subdivide it. And the reason for it is if it won't be subdivided, I will not have any points that I will be able to deform as I need. So let's go once more. This would be good enough. Now we will subordinate the spline wrap under our cube, so we can really name it match or matchstick. I'm not sure which is the appropriate name, but that's not really important. What is important is to drop this spline inside, and you won't really see any difference, but now this object, this match, is wrapped onto this spline. And if you select one of these points here, we just hide this guy for a moment, let's say this one, you will see that it actually deforms that match. So that gives us a lot of flexibility, because we can use effectors on this spline but preserve all the wealth of possibilities from this spline wrap. So that's a really good route for us to create a complex and advanced setup. Now, when the match burns, it really deforms in a somewhat random fashion. So let's select our spline here and load a random effector under it. Of course, it won't deform anything unless we turn off point mode and you will see the result, which is really too much. And let's just use a single axis. In this case, maybe Y. Let's put this to 20. And I think this could work. Let's leave it like this for a moment and we will see how that works later. Okay, so now our mesh is deformed, but we really want to control this deformation from the beginning because logically it will burn from this area towards here. So we have to put this effector in some sort of a fall-off mode, and the most appropriate mode here is the linear mode. That means it will enable the deformation and it will leave it enabled as it passes, and we have to change the orientation here. And once again, I hope that you didn't skip lessons because this can be a little bit confusing then, and I'm pretty sure you will have difficulties following this if you have skipped lessons. The reason I'm saying this about skipping lessons is because I receive so many emails about things that are answered in lessons, and I can't stress out enough how important it is to watch all lessons. 90% of questions I receive on emails is answered in lessons that one skips. Okay, so let's continue here. Now, I will pull this random effector here to a side so you can just see the effect. So currently, it's really working in an odd manner. Let's go to X minus, so that means it will enable the effect. I hope that makes sense. You can see it's really enabling that guy. Let's find the first point when deformation starts. I would say that that is somewhere around here. It doesn't really have to be perfect. Approximations are good enough. So that looks pretty good. And if you're anything like me, then this fall off guy will simply bother you in the viewport, and if you uncheck it, then you won't be really able to say where the fall off begins. So I commonly use a substitute object that really acts as a parent for these guys and similar situations. So we'll just hide it, and I will select my spline, go into point mode, and I will select this last point, and we'll go character conversion, and I will go selection to joints. That will create a joint exactly on the position of that spline point. So I'll rename this burn. It sounds really funny. And I will change the visibility of this guy. So I will display a, let's go with the circle, and I can color that with this color here. So let's go maybe with the red one, and if I enable this icon color, this is new in release 13, this bone will be colored in this color, so it's really vivid and obvious. So this guy will act as a controller for this random effector, and it's going to serve me as a visual guide where is the beginning of the effect. So since this guy is here under the spline hierarchy, I cannot really put this spline as a child of this burn object, because then it will move the spline and the whole setup will break then. What I can do, I can add a constraint tag. I can go with the PSR constraint. I will maintain original because I don't want this random effector to snap to this burn controller. And I will drop my burn controller here, and let's go just with the position. Now I'll check this visibility here so you can see what's going on. Now this burn controller will move that random effector. So once we hide it, we can pretty much forget about it, because we have this controller as a visual guide where our effect is starting from. I can undo that. What is also a really good idea is to freeze the transformations of these guys. So this current position becomes 0. I hope that ones that watched volume 3 are at home with these freeze transformation options, and now whenever I play with this guy and I hit reset position, it will snap back to its original position. And that's it as far as the first part of the setup is concerned. The other part of the setup we want, and that is for this match to become burned while we move this guy. So this control should also control the burning, and we will do that differently than we did this setup. So this will be really a setup for itself, but we will make it work together with some simple espresso. Now let's start by adding a material to the match object, and you will see it will completely cover the existing material. And let's change the projection here to cubic and turn off this tile, and you will see something happening. And now in texture mode you see that the texture is active only inside this box. So I can right click here and do a fit to object command, and it will ask me, do I want the sub objects to be included? In this case I can say no, and it will really fit nicely around that match. You can even scale this just a little bit in this mode, but only in 2 axes. So I have to keep the length the same. So maybe something like this, just to have a margin, because once this guy becomes deformed, it shouldn't get out of this box. Otherwise, if the geometry comes out of this virtual texture box, then it will show this texture underneath. I hope really that it makes sense, and let's proceed. So how do we make this guy travel from one side to another? And just select the material, because some things will be clear. There are offset values for U and V, and once again, what I was saying at the very beginning, you have to know Sina 4D pretty well before tackling MoGraph, otherwise you really won't be able to utilize MoGraph's potential in full. So take a look at this offset U setting. If I will play with it, I will simply offset that burn. So it's just a matter of connecting this value with this burn position. So let's put it to 100 here. That will be the starting point, the tip of the match. Now let's connect these two values with simple espresso. So I basically want value from here to drive this value. So I can go here under burn, and this is actually the X minus position, which will drive this offset U value. So I hope that makes sense. I will then right click here, do an animation set driver, and here under this material, under this offset U, I will do an animation set driven relative. This will create a null with a new espresso tag, and it will create a simple expression for us. I will fold these guys and pull this a little bit upwards and explain what happened here. Here, this position X, it's exactly the same value here. For this texture, offset U is exactly the same value here. So this range mapper will really tell what happens to this guy after we do something to this burn position. I really hope that makes sense. So, and also I know it's really simple for ones that watched volume 3, and basically what we want to do here is, once we move this guy, and you can see something happening, and try to read out this last value. So it's around 330 or so. So in this range mapper, our input lower should be from 0 to minus 330. Okay, we just doodle that. So this range is from 0 to minus 330, okay? And it should drive this guy, so this is a part where it drives this second guy, that value should be from 100 to 0. Okay, so let's give it a shot. So from 100 to 0. Let's now try and see what happens with our burn, because this offset U, now if you will try to play with it, you really won't be able, because Espresso takes over the control. So let's try to move it and see what happens. And how about that? So just to help you visually even more, we grab the doodle tool. This guy is, I can select maybe another color, so it really differentiates. So think of this as this violet color here, and this guy as this blue color I'm about to use. This offset U here is 100% value here, and it goes over to 0% because this guy is telling it so with this range mapper. And as a consequent effect, we have that burning effect displayed. Now I will get rid of this doodle guy, and I hope this was not too complicated. And here under burn object, under the size, you can set the custom and maybe increase this a little bit so it's a little bit more vivid. So now would be really the time to add a third component to this setup, and that is particles, but this is really beyond the scope of this training. Also, we mentioned at the very beginning we want to have some additional controls. So let me show you that you can affect the length, and you can also affect the size. So maybe you can play with this, add points and modify that match as you see fit. And that's about it. This is one really nice setup. Let's go now to our next project.